Hey y'all, she got Brandon here. It's been a long time since I've recorded one of these, literally 4 months. So my apologies. Shit happens. But I wanted to do one of these videos here before the year is out to talk the year that was 2023 in boxing. So appreciate you watching this. A little rusty at this, so again, apologies. But let's kind of dive into it. Here I'm going to talk about my fighter of the year, trainer of the year, um, maybe the best performance of the year, and a couple of things on my mind for 2023, and then kind of try to figure out what we're going to see here in 2024. So let me do the normal YouTuber thing. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button below. All right, that's out the way. So let's kind of dive into 2023 and the year that was here in boxing. Um, it was a year of I think transition may be the best word for it. We've seen where certain fighters have retired or lost their championships, and we see transitions from that aspect. I think this year we're seeing more of a transition from a business aspect, and I don't 100% know if that's good or bad yet, and I don't think we really will until probably the halfway through 2024. It's going to be a lot of factors that I'll touch into later in the video in regards to where that's all going to go in boxing here next year. But this year felt like a year of transition. You have the argument of who's the face of boxing. Is it Tank Davis? Is it Canelo? Is it someone else? Is it Terrence Crawford? It's a lot of narrative with that. So we had that this year. We had the emergence of Tank Davis, Gervonta Davis, that is. I guess you can call him he's a legit boxing superstar. I'm not going to take anything away from him there. So he's definitely earned his stripes in this thing, but what's going to be next for him? Canelo, has he lost some of his luster in regards to being that guy, and what's going to be next for him? 2023 wasn't great for him. It wasn't bad. I mean, beating up Charlo was rather interesting, but not overly surprising, to be quite honest. Speaking of the Charlo brothers, those guys are a hot mess. So 2023 was not the kindest to them, per se. So it was a weird year. I'm not even going to lie about it. It's a very weird year. I don't know really what to call it or make out of it. So let me just kind of name off my awards and kind of go from there. My fighter of the year is Noe Inoue. Quite honestly, I think you have to reward him for being an active fighter. Now, I'll touch on who gave the performance of the year. I'll touch on that here momentarily, but I felt Inoue had you know, the best year amongst the champions there are, and the best pound for pound fighters there are in the world. I mean, he beat Stephen Fulton, beat him quite convincingly. As we're recording this video, as I am recording this video here today, he just unified all the championships, beating Tapis. I think that's how you enunciate it. Y'all know I'm horrible with names. Nothing has changed here throughout the years. I beat him. He's got all the belts here in the division. He's said after the fight he's not moving up in weight. He's at least going to have one more weight here in the division as the unified champion. How long that actually lasts, him being unified with the sanctioning fees and all that fancy nonsense that goes on with being a four belt holder, we'll see. But he is currently a champion and the number one guy there in this division. And quite honestly, you can make the argument for him still being the number one pound for pound fighter there is in the world. So again, it depends on your criteria there. He's probably no worse than two. I mean, your number one guy could be Terrence Crawford. If it's not, Inoue, it's going to be one of those two, quite honestly, at this point in their respective careers. But I'm going to reward Inoue as being the fighter of the year because he was active. Fighting more than one time a year actually does mean something. You have to stay active. I don't care who you faced in the fights that you have, per se. But activity is something we have to reward fighters on because not everyone is daring to be great and wanting to take multiple fights. So Inoue did it, fought very good competition, and made it look easy, quite honestly. So Inoue is my fighter of the year. Now the honorable mentions is going to be obviously Terrence Crawford with his win against Earl Spence, and Devin Haney, who had fought a lot as well this year. I mean, give him credit because in the cycle where we see fighters not fighting as often, not fighting, top tier competition, not challenging themselves, Devin Haney, I think, definitely stepped up this year with the Lomachenko fight, with the Regis Prograis, one-sided drubbing that he handed out a couple of weeks ago. He definitely proved his point, and I think he's definitely solidified himself as being one of those guys in boxing. Now, what happens with him in 2024? We'll wait later in the video and we'll talk about that. But in a way, it's my fighter of the year. Really, that's the only three guys that I think I can legitimately struggle with that. Legitimately given the award to. Those are three guys that make the most sense. If you're not saying one of those three guys, you're either reaching, trying to be provocative, trying to get the people going, or you don't know shit about boxing. So it's going to be one of those three. In a way, it's my pick there. Now, as far as performance of the year goes, that's hands down to me, Terrence Crawford. What Terrence Crawford did to Errol Spence, I think us boxing fans knew, especially, I don't want to say us experts. I don't like lumping myself in that. But us who know boxing know that wasn't overly surprising, but it was just more surprising on how easy he made it look. He made it look really easy, kind of uncomfortably easy, the way he drubbed and beat up Errol Spence. And the magnitude of this fight, how much build up and how we were hoping this fight was finally going to occur, and it took him leaving Top Rank and going over to PBC for this fight finally to happen. And then it happened, and it was very anticlimactic because Errol Spence just didn't have it. Now, you'll hear a lot of excuses from Spence's side, and I'm not going to believe any of that. You knew this fight was coming. You knew what you should have been ready. And if you weren't ready, whose fault is that? That's not Terrence Crawford's fault. Terrence Crawford did what he was supposed to do against a guy who's undefeated and a champion. He went out there and he beat the brakes off of him. So Terrence Crawford has my performance of the year. Kudos to him for that victory he put on. Again, the only other guys that I can really throw in there per se in regards to performance of the year, Devin Haney, his one-sided beating of Regis Prograis is definitely one that, very close. I mean, definitely given, again, kind of considering who the fighters are and what the matchup was all about, very close to being what Terrence Crawford did to Errol Spence, what Haney did to Regis Prograis. So you have to give him acknowledgement there. Also, again, in a way with his victory over Stephen Fulton and the way he did it there. Ben Rodriguez's victory over Sonny Edwards is another one of those. You have to look at and say, okay, kind of a one-sided victory on his behalf. And David Benavidez as well, picking up a big victory here a couple of months back. So, again, you see the pattern. Whoa, hey, hitting the mic. You see the pattern here with these fighters. So, kudos to Terrence Crawford. Again, I couldn't give him my fighter of the year because I want to reward in a way for being more active, while Terrence Crawford easily, hands down, had the performance of the year in my opinion. Now, as far as trainer of the year goes, that also is going to go to somebody that Terrence Crawford knows very well, and that's Bomac. That's Brian McIntyre. Obviously, what he did with Terrence Crawford, preparing him for the Spence fight, his work with the Davis brothers, both Keyshawn and Calvin, and also Chris Eubank, which, he ended up getting locked up over in the UK after that fight for having a gun in his bag. So, he was locked up. It seemed like he was locked up a couple of months. It was a while he was locked away. He gets charges dropped or however that all worked out to where he ended up getting free, comes back to the States a couple of days later. He's cornering one of the Davis brothers in a fight. So that just goes to show you, again, this guy's dedication to his craft, wanting to see his fighters do well, wanting to see them continuously grow and improve. Hands down, trainer of the year. And you got to respect with Brian McIntyre and what they're doing there in the B&B boxing gym up in Omaha. So salute to Brian McIntyre. Glad you're free. Glad you're a free man and doing your thing. And I think he's definitely going to still have another solid 2024 as well. So salute to him. I'm not going to name a fight of the year. I'm not even going to name a round of the year or a knockout of the year. I'm going to be quite honest. My attention span for that stuff is very small. To where I can't say that I can pick something out there or even a prospect of the year because, it's very subjective with that, and it depends on what you like, what you don't like. I will say some guys that I'm still wondering about going into 2024, and it's two guys in the heavyweight division who, quite honestly, I think should fight each other next. That's Daniel Dubois. That's Jared Big Baby Anderson. That is Anderson? Yeah, Anderson. I'm about to call him Miller. Wrong one. Um, but I wonder about those two. I mean, Anderson looks to be the part, but I still wonder a little bit about him. Daniel Dubois, who I thought was the goods, and anyone who listened to the podcast over the past 6 years when I did the show and talked about fighters underneath the age of 25 who I was just enamored with, he was one of those guys. And he really kind of had a meh 2023. So, he picked up a win here over this past weekend against Gerald Big Baby Miller, who came in quite obese for that fight. Let me just keep it a buck. He picked up a win there. His promoter thinks he's now back in the mix for the big fights. I'm not so sure about that, and I really don't think Daniel Dubois is ready for prime time. I just don't. So I have a lot of question marks about him. Big Bang Zhang, who picked up victories over Joe Joyce and did it very stunning fashion, is a guy who I think now or never for him, given his age. He kind of started off as a pro a little bit later. He didn't really get a ton of fights for stretches. Now he's starting to cash in, and who's going to be his opponent and who can he challenge? Because he's going to be a tough out, I think, for a lot of guys. So he's another one in the heavyweight division. Very interested in seeing where Bam Rodriguez goes from here after his victory over Sonny Edwards. I'm interested to see how that plays out for him. So a lot of question marks about guys who won fights going into next year. So I guess we'll just transition to that. What do I see for 2024? Like I said, it's going to be a year of transition with a lot of things. PBC is now going to be airing on Amazon Prime. There also is rumor of some sort of television deal with another network involved to where they get some more dates. How that all work out, we don't know yet. Quite honestly, and as I record this here on December 26th, I'm a little stunned we don't have anything official in regards to their first fight here on Amazon Prime because I heard that was going to be in January. I mean, it's still feasible if we get something announced here the next day or so, and it'd be the last week of January. Fighters should always be training and working out and knowing a date could come. So I guess that can still happen with that, but it's been announced that they're moving over there after Showtime is now out of the boxing game, but still nothing yet. So it will be interesting to see in regards to PBC fighters how that plays out for them and if we get the big fights. Now, I think that's going to be another thing, a part of the transition here in 2024 is the big fights. Will we get a lot of them this year? Well, next year, that is. I don't know. I really don't. And I think if we do get them, it's going to be very few of them per se. And I think for the most part, they're going to be on international soil. They're going to be over in the Middle East because as they show with that huge heavyweight card they had back here with the Day of Reckoning, it was called, they're willing to fit the bill and throw a lot of money out to get fighters and fights there. So if we're going to have big fights, they're going to be there because the money to host a fight there is just going to outweigh anything Vegas, California, Texas, or New York can offer these big fights. Now, that's not saying we still won't get big fights here in America. I just think it's going to be a very limited number. Now, what I'm kind of pointing towards is, say a matchup, say just kind of do a triangle here. Devin Haney, that is, Gervonta Tank Davis, Teofimo Lopez. I think if you're going to see either one of those guys fight each other, I think it's going to be on foreign soil just because I think that's where the money's going to be at. I just don't see right now, the way the landscape is set up, that's fights that the promoters are going to be able to make the money back on with site fees and all that to recoup. And also it's going to be interesting with pay-per-view numbers, how that all works out, how that the business of boxing, how that plays into things and how we actually get the big fights. I don't like talking pay-per-view numbers and all that shit. I don't care. I don't make any money off of it, so I don't care. If I'm not spending any money, if I'm not making any money, I don't care. I don't pocket watch like that. But it does affect the business of boxing and what fights we do and don't get. And also another factor we're going to have to look into again here as we go into 2024 is what promoters are going to be willing to play nice with each other and make the fights happen. Again, money talks. If the money is big enough, you're going to see the fights happen. Again, more so probably over in the Middle East opposed to here in America. So I'm not so sure what we're going to see with a lot of these fighters and fights. So that's, this is the first time, and I think in a couple of years, probably, definitely post pandemic, to where I really have no idea what we're going to see in boxing the following year. As we were in 2020 and transitioned to 2021, I had no earthly clue what we were going to see because we didn't know. Um, you know, it was different going in from 21 to 22 and 22 into 23. I think this is kind of this like it was for me going into 2020 to 2021. I don't know what 2024 is going to hold for a lot of things in boxing, and probably for humanity for that part. I just don't know. I mean, typically that's nothing you want somebody who's a boxing expert or someone who wants to talk about boxing say, but I don't know. Uh, it's just so much stuff up in the air. You've got rumors going around online that TopRank is selling to Endeavor. That's the parent company that owns the UFC and the WWE, and that's being shot down. I will say this: where there's smoke, there's fire. There's always going to be a fire when you hear something like that just come out of the blue. Um, you never know how that's going to play out. You got rumors of other dealings with networks and what have you. You have Oscar De La Hoya warring with his fighters, specifically Ryan Garcia. What they do with Ryan Garcia if he gets a fight against Devin Haney here, first quarter of 2024. Anthony Joshua won. Deontay Wilder lost. That was a fight that was signed ahead of their respective individual bouts they had here on the Day of Reckoning card. Will we ever see that fight come to the light of day? What happens with Alexander Usyk, Tyson Fury, and their unification bout here for the heavyweight championship? David Benavidez, does he finally get his hands on Canelo? And quite honestly, is the love, the fire fandom out there still for Canelo? Is he going to need to face a certified killer in David Benavidez for fans to, I guess, get back on his bandwagon? Because I think a lot of them jumped off and just weren't there as much. They weren't as hyped for that Charlo fight as I think he might have thought they would have been. So we'll see. I mean, it's a lot of interesting factors with that. Terrence Crawford, will he move up to 154? Will Earl Spence get his rematch against him? Will Earl Spence look the same or look better? It's a lot of weird things going on in boxing that there's just so many question marks on that. Typically I have the crystal ball to look into the future. I have no earthly clue. I'm absolutely at a loss of what we're going to see in 2024. I think we'll have a much better idea after the first quarter, once you start hearing fights being booked and made, how things are going to lay out and plan out in the year. So, I'll just tell fans this from this aspect is be patient. Uh, Let things kind of play out before you get ready to burn things down. And also be ready to open up your check and pocketbooks because there's going to be more fights behind more paywalls. So just get ready for not only have to pay a subscription to one service, but then also paying another fee to see said item through said service. So it's going to get expensive for fight fans. It's already expensive as it is. It's going to get even more expensive for them in 2024. But then the question is going to be, is quality going to be worth the content? And I think that's going to be a real interesting line these promoters and networks are going to have to toe to figure out a good balance to where they're getting value for what they're spending on said content and the fans are getting value on said content they're paying for. Because if the fans don't like it, no matter how much content you put out, they're not going to watch, they're not going to pay for it. So that's going to be a very interesting thing going into 2024 to look at and look after. Um, Beyond that, I don't have anything else that I can really think of that I want to, just kind of say I'm looking forward to this, looking forward to that. Because again, I don't know. I have no idea. Will I be at the fights more here in 2024? That is my plan. Will I be doing more content like this? Yes, I do actually plan on doing more content like this. I've recently got reinvigorated and re-inspired to do more talking about boxing. So please, I know you've sat through almost 20 minutes of this. I'm sorry it kind of went a little bit longer of a rant than I thought I would, but bear with me. You watch it in parts. Pause it halfway through if you had to and watch the rest of it. Should have said that earlier, but whatever. But I do plan on doing more of these. I do actually plan on trying to do one at least once a month, maybe one every other week, and producing more content to talk boxing. Obviously, as things break, news-wise, maybe share my thoughts in a quick video here on the page. So again, I do appreciate everyone who's rocked with me here through 2023 as my transition year from doing a weekly podcast to really not doing anything in regards to boxing. But again, I've kind of gotten re-inspired in the recent weeks and months, and you will see more content from me, Lord willing. So I appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff that other YouTubers say. Maybe we'll get some fancy graphics here next time, but whatever. So yeah, love y'all. Be safe. Happy New Year. Safe New Year. I will be back to talk more boxing with you here in 2024. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, love one another. That's the only way we're going to get through this. Until next time, I'm Brandon Stubbs, and I am out.